The MotoGP world is in turmoil once again, and competitive tensions are skyrocketing. Marc Márquez has finally reconfirmed his decision, dramatically changing the power landscape and setting off alarm bells among his rivals. The entire Ducati team is now on full alert for the 2026 MotoGP season. Could this be a sign of a new era of dominance that will shake up the entire paddock? Let's discuss. When the checkered flag flies at the end of the 2025 MotoGP season, it will seemingly usher in a new era for the racing world. It's not just a change of seasons, it's a complete reset. Marc Márquez isn't just returning to the top, he's redefining the concept of a comeback in the world's most brutal sport. After years plagued by injuries, doubts, and career setbacks that nearly ended his career, his first season with the Ducati Lenovo team ended with one word: dominance. The statistics speak for themselves. His authority is undeniable, and the aura of inevitability once again surrounds Marc Márquez. Ironically, however, the final image of that season isn't Márquez lifting a trophy. Rather, it's the image of a wounded, marginalised champion forced to watch MotoGP's future begin without him on the track. This tension between absolute dominance and sudden vulnerability defines MotoGP as it heads into the 2026 season. At 32 years old, with 13 Premier Class seasons and 9 world titles under his belt, Márquez is clearly closer to the end of his career than the beginning. But one thing remains unchanged: his mentality. It's difficult to predict the future, Márquez admitted. But if I'm still racing, my ambition will always be the same. This statement alone was enough to unsettle Ducati's rivals. Márquez's move to Ducati wasn't just a change of bike, it was a philosophical reset. He left Honda, the team that nurtured him, after years of battling with an increasingly hostile and physically demanding machine. The decision was made after Japan, 2023, but the seeds were planted earlier. Davide Tardozzi still remembers a pivotal moment at the Sachsenring in 2023, when he saw Márquez crash repeatedly. "Maybe it's time for a change, Marc," Tardozzi said at the time. Márquez was at his lowest point, frustrated, desperate, and exhausted. That brief conversation was the beginning of everything. A season with Gresini gave him the opportunity to reinvent himself. A year later, a factory Ducati seat was the answer to everything he had been missing. A bike that could win without destroying his body. "I arrived at the right team with the right bike," Márquez said. "A happy rider is a fast rider." The results were astonishing. 25 wins out of 36 races, including sprint races and Grand Prix, pole positions, and a championship title that was sealed long before the end of the season. Ducati wasn't just winning, they were dominating the season. More worrying for the paddock, Márquez admitted that in some races he wasn't giving it his all. Even then, he remained untouchable. "Marc is a phenomenon," said Tardozzi, "but even phenomena have limits." The season ended abruptly in Indonesia when Marco Bezzecchi crashed into Márquez from behind. Márquez was thrown hard into the gravel, fracturing his coracoid bone and damaging his ligaments. This forced him to miss the final 4 races and the crucial Valencia test. For the first time this season, Ducati must plan for the future without their primary point of reference. The Valencia test was supposed to be Márquez's opportunity to influence the development of the Desmosedici GP26. Now, however, he enters 2026 with limited resources, relying on simulations, team input, and complete trust in Ducati's direction. For a rider who relies on feeling and precision with the front end of the bike, this is clearly a disadvantage. Nevertheless, Márquez's mentality remains unchanged. "I've always believed that 365 days a year, you wake up and go to bed thinking about how to improve," he said. 3 months after his surgery, Marc Márquez finally confirmed the news that the MotoGP community had been waiting for. He was back on a motorcycle. His long and careful recovery process was finally paying off. The bones had fused perfectly. The ligaments were back in place, and the pain was slowly fading. "I'm at 70, 80%, Marquez said calmly, yet meaningfully. This statement immediately raised alarm bells in the paddock. Then came his follow-up sentence, which put all of Ducati's rivals on high alert. Next week, we'll start accelerating. However, the biggest shock from the confirmation of Marc Márquez's return was felt within the Aprilia racing camp. In Noala, the mood changed drastically. It wasn't euphoria, but rather heightened vigilance. Márquez's return, even at only 70–80%, set off alarm bells for Aprilia's Moto GP 2026 project. Aprilia fully understood the significance of Márquez being in a semi-healthy state, especially now with Ducati. He isn't just a rider recovering from injury. He's a serious threat to the competitive landscape. Marco Bezzecchi didn't hide his anxiety. Aprilia's star rider admitted that Márquez's presence would change everything. If Marc returns, MotoGP won't be the same, said Bezzecchi. Even when he's not at 100%, he can still win. That puts everyone under pressure. According to Bezzecchi, there's no longer room for an average weekend. Every session now demands perfection because one small mistake can be fatal. Massimo Rivola, CEO of Aprilia Racing, shared a similar sentiment. He openly acknowledged the significant impact of Márquez's return to the track. When a rider like Marc returns, especially with Ducati, the balance immediately shifts, said Rivola. All teams have to rethink their strategy. He emphasised that Aprilia must work faster and more precisely now. According to him, Márquez won't need long to return to the highest level. The 2026 MotoGP season hasn't started yet, but the psychological warfare is already palpable. Ducati is on full alert, Aprilia is on maximum alert, and Marc Márquez has only just begun to step on the accelerator. Behind the spotlight on Marc, another story is quietly unfolding. Alex Marquez had the best season of his career with Gresini, despite riding last year's bike. His 3 consecutive second-place finishes at the start of the season were considered a fluke. However, his first Premier-class victory in Spain changed everything. By the 5th round, Alex was leading the standings, 1 point ahead of his older brother. He never looked back. 2 wins and 5 podiums in the final 7 races secured his spot as the world runner-up. Ducati moved quickly. Alex Marquez has shown significant evolution and deserves a factory bike, Ducati management wrote. This decision came after VR46 rejected a second GP26 due to cost and Franco Morbidelli's inconsistency. Gresini increased its financial contribution, and now Alex has the same machine as Marc Márquez, Pecco Bagnaia, and Fabio Di Giannantonio. On paper, nothing has changed, but in reality, everything has. MotoGP 2026 is ultimately not just about the fastest bike or winning statistics, but about who is best prepared to handle the intense mental pressure of this new era. Marc Márquez is back, Ducati is on full alert, and Aprilia is wary. Meanwhile, Ducati's internal dynamics are heating up with the rise of Alex Marquez. The paddock is already shaking, even before the starting lights go on. Will Marquez's return truly usher in a new era of dominance, or will it spark the biggest war in MotoGP history? Let us know your thoughts below.